So what about access control or authorization? This is where things get extremely complex in Azure. So different objects at different scopes are controlled in different ways. For example, the objects that are directly under a tenant can be controlled by Azure AD admin roles, MS Graph API permissions, the legacy Azure AD API permissions, object scoped admin roles, and the objects that are highlighted in blue can also have one or more or none explicit owners of their object. So there are already 5 different distinct access control mechanisms just for this scope of objects here. In Azure RM, you also have Azure admin roles, which are not Azure AD admin roles. Are you confused yet? I was. For blobs, there's also ABAC, attribute-based access control. And then certain objects like key vaults have their own permissions model specific to that object. How much fun is that? Like, if you're an admin and you're trying to determine who has control of any of these objects, you have to have a perfect understanding of all these different access control mechanisms. And of course, there is no one click in Azure to see the effective permissions against any of these objects. That would make way too much sense. Additionally, Azure has the concept of permissions inheritance. So if I describe a permission against my root management group, for example, that privilege will inherit down to every object under that root management group. Admins cannot change this behavior. Or if I set a permission at a subscription level, that also will inherit down to all of those descendant objects. The same is true at the tenant level. If I specify a permission at the tenant level, that will inherit down not only to all of the objects directly under the tenant, but also all objects that have a trust relationship through a subscription to the tenant. Okay,